In this video, we are going to be discussing the Power BI Workspace. That's right, we're going to be discussing the Power BI Workspace out there on PowerBI.com. I'm going to take you behind the scenes a little bit as to what happens once we publish a Power BI report. However, before we get started, here's the deal. You already know. The first thing I want you to do is scan the QR code, follow the link, and become a member of our community. Become a member of the community of CTOs. What do you get as a member of the CTOs? You get our weekly newsletter. You get access to the weekly webinars. It's held every Thursday, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, you must register for the webinars, but you do get access to the webinars. We also are having our upcoming live event in Dallas, Texas, Power of the BI Live. That's right, we're having Power of the BI Live, and you will get the exclusive member discount for participating in Power of the BI Live, along with a whole lot of other stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into all of that because what you stopped by here for was to check out the video today on the Power BI Workspace. It's kind of slipped my mind just that quick, but we're going to be discussing the Power BI Workspace. So let's move right on over into the video and let's start taking a look here at the Power BI Workspace. Let's see here, make sure I'm on tune here. And where we are right now, we are looking at a report that has already been created in the Power BI Workspace. Now, this is actually showing Ford Motor Company. This is a report that I created for my portfolio, but it's not actually Ford data. We're not even going to go through the data, but it's not actually Ford data. It's actually just dummy data that myself and my team created in order to create a report. We could use this report for pretty much any automobile company, retail company, Ford, Chevy, Porsche, whomever. We can use this report, but that's not what this story is about. The story that we're talking about today is how do we maneuver around and what exactly is the Power BI Workspace. Now, if we look here, it looks somewhat similar, but we can tell it's got a different aesthetic look when it comes to what we have been building our reports from. We've been building our reports out of Power BI Desktop, the application that we downloaded from Microsoft, the Power BI Desktop. Now, you are going to find that I'm going to go against my rules of thumb. Well, I'm not going to go against my rules of thumb. I'm going to show you some alternative approaches of creating a Power BI report here a little bit later. But right now, here in the workspace, basically what we have is well, let me back up. Let me tell you this. So the Power BI Workspace is found out at app.powerbi.com. I even believe that it's probably under Fabric now. It may be under app.fabric.com or fabric.com. We'll talk about Fabric a little later. Power BI and Fabric are pretty much in the same family, but not really. They're in the same family, but they don't necessarily eat at the same table on Sundays, right? We'll talk about Fabric a little later. But what we have is what I'm gonna go through now is showing you what is out here in the workspace. And basically, how do we get to the workspace? Let's start there. The way that we got to the workspace was that we published the report from the desktop. Let me say it a different way. One way to get to the workspace is to publish the report from the desktop. And when you publish it from the desktop, it goes to a workspace. Now, in general, it could generally go to the My Workspace, or you can create a workspace for it to go to. The reason why I'm really kind of hesitant when I say that we publish it from the Power BI desktop in order for it to get to the workspace is because we can create the report outside of the Power BI Workspace. Outside of Power BI Desktop. I always say that you must have a PC to create a Power BI report. I always say you must have a PC to create a Power BI report. That's not totally true. Okay, so I'm gonna speak a little slower, even though you already know I'm from Arkansas and I talk real fast, and sometimes I get tangled up in some of the words and letters that I use because I just talk real fast, right? But I always tell you that you must have a PC in order to create a Power BI report. For those of you that have Macs or have other operating systems outside of a PC, you can create a Power BI report. The issue is that creating a Power BI report from the desktop is a lot more robust than creating a Power BI report from any other operating system. Because in any other operating system, you've got to come out to the workspace. You've got to come out to what was called service, Power BI service. They may even be calling it Fabric service now. Again, we'll talk about Fabric a little later. But in order to create a Power BI report and not be in the Power BI desktop, you've got to create the report in service. And that's where we are now, in app.powerbi.com or in Power BI service. It's all the same thing. When I say Power BI service at app.powerbi.com, it's the same thing, right? Now, creating a report in Power BI desktop is just a lot more robust. Now, they could have updated some of the things, and I do know a lot has been updated when it comes to creating reports in service now. But I'm never going to encourage you to create a report in service unless that's all you do. When you come to my 16-week program, Power the BI, or when you come to the Power BI Live in Dallas in May, what I'm going to tell you is bring a PC. Do not bring any other operating system to Power BI to Power BI Live or in creating a report in the 16-week course. You can do it, but it's just not. I mean, let me back up. You cannot. I don't allow that in Power of the BI Live, and I don't allow it in the 16-week course. Right. That's not to say it can't be done, because you can see right now that if you go out to Power BI service, app.powerbi.com, you can create a Power BI report using other operating systems. Now, and let me back up again. I don't work for Microsoft. I don't work for any of the PC manufacturing companies. What I do know is that Microsoft has created this particular product for the PC specifically, and you get the best use and you become the best developer using what the company has designed it for. With that said, again, if you want to build reports using other operating systems, you totally can. Just don't blame it on me if there's some things that you are used to using or you've seen have been used on Power BI desktop that you didn't get a chance, that you're not able to use out on service. But with that said, we are out here on Power BI service. This is the Power BI, I'm inside of a Power BI workspace. What I did was I published this particular report from Power BI desktop. When I published it from Power BI desktop, basically I decided which workspace I wanted to send it to. Now, out here let's go over. When I come over to the left, we can see here, these are my different workspaces. So my workspaces that I have, I have a Fabric workspace. I have a Microsoft project workspace. I have a PBI Dev 01 workspace, which is the workspace that I typically build reports out of. I have a Terod Robertson Power BI portfolio workspace, and I have a test RLS workspace, which is where I have been doing some testing for row level security. Now, these are the workspaces that I have. As you see, we can come down to the bottom and we can say create or add a new workspace. It's just as simple. We can create a new workspace. And basically what the workspaces allow us to do is it allows us to publish reports and place reports in particular places. It's just like a folder, for lack of any better term. It's like having a folder on your hard drive, and you saying, hey, I want to place all of these documents in this folder and place all of these documents in this folder. Basically, on the workspace, we are able to place reports in different workspaces. Again, I created a separate workspace for my portfolio. So here in I click my portfolio, and now I can see all of the projects that are in my portfolio workspace, which I believe that Ford project was in, yeah, here it is. It's in my workspace as well, in addition to several other projects. I'm not going to go through those projects as of right now. I just want to show you that this is where you can place different projects. So I created a workspace just for my portfolio. So if an employer or potential client wanted to see my portfolio or what type of projects that I've created, I can send them or give them access to my Power BI workspace. So for the lack of any better term, a workspace is it's very similar to a folder. There's a lot more things that can happen within a workspace than in a folder. For instance, you can create an app inside the workspace. You can make the workspace, it's a lot that you can do inside of a workspace, right? But at the end of the day, what you really need to know is that you can place reports and projects inside of a workspace. Now, since we are out here in the workspace, I'm going to come back over. I believe that project is probably in My Workspace. And again, My Workspace, all of these projects are My Workspace. But when you publish a project, when you publish a report from Power BI Desktop, one of your options, just a standard option, is My Workspace. It's a workspace called My Workspace. So you can publish your reports to My Workspace. So here, I'm out here in this workspace, which I'm calling My Workspace. I am just trying to see if that same project is in this workspace. It appears that it may not be. I've got a lot of projects in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over to My Workspace. Well, I'm going to come back over to Workspaces, and I am going to select my portfolio workspace, and I'm going to select that project again because I don't know where I saved it, but I'm going to select that project again just because I want to talk from the standpoint of the same project. Now, I don't want to go right here. I want to be over here. So that's workspaces in a nutshell. That's workspaces in a nutshell. But while we're out here on Workspaces and we're in service, in Power BI service, let's talk about some of the things that can happen in Power BI service. So now that we've published the report, it's out here in the workspace. One thing that we can do with this project is we can come up to File and we can save a copy of this report. We can save a copy of this report, right? And we've got, just as we normally could, we just enter a name and we can save a copy of the report. We can create a new folder and we can place this project in a different folder. Okay, we can assign tasks here in this workspace. In this particular case, it's unassigned. But if you have individuals that need to be assigned a task, you can assign tasks for this particular project, for this particular report. We can place this report in a new folder. That's one of the options that we have under File. Let's go back up to File. Let's see what else we have. We can manage permissions under File. What does manage permissions mean? Manage permissions means we may not want to give access to everyone within the organization access to this report. So we could manage the permissions. Now, typically permissions are governed by the Power BI administrator. The Power BI administrator will determine who has the permissions. But in this particular case, I'm the Power BI administrator and I can give access to individuals, but given that I'm the only person that's building this report and have access to the report, I don't necessarily have to give permissions. Let's go back. Let's look and see what else do we have under file. Let's see here. It's loading a little slower with the back arrow. It's going too slow for me. So let's just go back and reopen the report just to save a little time. And why are we moving so slow? It is loading the report. It is loading the report. Let's see if this will help. And this is another reason why I prefer to use Power BI Desktop. And that's simply because out on service here, out on the web, things happen, it slows. So again, that's one of the reasons why I don't like to build out in desktop in Power BI services, because you have internet problems, internet glitches, and it slows your project down. But that's not the primary reason. Primary reason that I don't like to design a service is that the service is just not as robust. What I mean by that is you're not able to do some of the things in service as you can on desktop. But we're back here. We're back in my workspace. We're back at the project. We were at File, and in File, we checked out Save Copy, Manage Permissions. We can actually print this page if we want to. We can print the page, and this is what the page looks like if we wanted to print it. We can make it landscape. Let's cancel out of here so we see that we can print it. We can also see what else down here. We can embed the report, so we can share. We can create it as a SharePoint online. We can embed it as a SharePoint file, embed it into a SharePoint file online. We can embed it into a website or a portal. We can publish to the web so that anyone out there can see it and have access to it. Not a great idea, but we can do it. Developer playground, I don't know what that is. I don't normally mess around in developer playground, but that sounds like there's something you can just edit and play around with the report a little bit. Bottom line is, publish it to the web. We can publish it to the web. Again, I don't encourage you publishing your Power BI reports to the web, because once you publish your Power BI report to the web, anyone that has access to the web can view it, and they will have access to the data behind the report. So if you do it from just doing it from, I'm gonna call it your playground, within your creating just a report. For instance, here I can publish this report to the web and it's not gonna affect anybody. But if you're on the job, never publish the report to the web unless the job or IT department gives you permission to or asks you to do so. In 99.999% of the time, they're never gonna ask you to publish it directly to the web. You can publish it to the website or a portal, and that's just inside the company, and your SharePoint file online, again, within the company. You can generate it as a QR code. I've never generated it as a QR code, but hey, here it is. So now you can grab that information. I'm going to close that down because that will give you access to My Workspace. But you can publish it as a QR code and share it that way as well. I don't know if that's a new feature or not. I've never saved it as a QR code or published as a QR code. What else can we do? We can come over, we can look under export. We can export this bad boy, so the data that's in here, we can export it and analyze the data in an Excel file, or you can save it as a CSV, and you can do whatever you want to do with it as a CSV. We can publish it as a PowerPoint. Let's see what it looks like if we publish it as a PowerPoint. We just publish this PowerPoint. We're going to open in PowerPoint. Let's see what happens. I don't normally publish reports or export reports to PowerPoint. So let's just see what happens if we publish this bad boy to a PowerPoint, and it opened up on my other screen. So let's see if I can grab it. And here we go. I'm gonna bring my other screen over just so we can see what happens if we publish it as a PowerPoint. That's pretty interesting. It is opening yes. I mean, it's pretty cool. So if you created the PowerPoint, you created the Power BI report, you wanted to present it as a wireframe or just as an example as to what it could look like, you could publish it. You can publish it, export it as a PowerPoint, and you can save it and send it to whomever you like. Now, the thing about the PowerPoint is, since it is a PowerPoint file, of course, the data is not behind it. It is only a picture. But that's okay, because the purpose is just to show it as a report. I mean, as a Power BI, a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm not going to save that, and I'm going to move back over here. So we can export it as an Excel file, a PowerPoint file. Let's open it as a PDF with the current values. I don't know what the default value, what difference would be for the default values, given that the current report has the values. So how can the default values change? I don't know. But at the end of the day, let's see what it looks like if we open it as, if we export it as a PDF. And looks like it went to my downloads. So I am going to go to my downloads, and I will bring it over to this screen. And that didn't, guess I gotta open it. There we go. So this is actually the report as a PDF. It's kind of wonky as a PDF. Let's make it a little, see if we can make it. The reason why I say it's a little wonky, as a PDF, it's not as clean. It looks like the column chart has dropped down a little bit, so it's not even with the state, with the country as it was, and it's falling on top. I don't know why that would happen. Typically a PDF would be cleaner in most cases, but in this particular case it's not. So you see what could happen if you save it as a PDF. Looks like that. If you want to give somebody a paper copy, it looks like that PowerPoint actually transferred over pretty good. So I would actually use it as I would do it as a PowerPoint. Again, I don't necessarily share as PowerPoints or PDFs when I build a report. I see now that I can. I always knew that I could save it and export it, but you know, when you're building a Power BI report, you like, hey, you know, I'll make a screenshot of it, but I'm not necessarily trying to do a whole lot of other stuff with it. Now, so we have in the export, we see that we can analyze it in Excel. We can export it to a PowerPoint, and we can export it to a PDF. We also can share it in another way. Now, I have shared files this way before. One, you can put the person's email address in here, and you can send it. You can copy the link and you can send it. You can copy the link and you can put it in Teams and you can send it. You can copy the link, put it in an email and send it. I've never done it. I've never done the PowerPoint. Again, I have never shared as a PowerPoint because this is a Power BI report. Why am I sharing a Power BI report as a PowerPoint presentation? Now, please put emphasis on when you copy the link. A Power BI report, 99.99% of the time, and the other 0.00001% is when you are publishing to the web, but 99.999% of the time, the report that you're sharing must be shared with someone within the company that has the same email domain. For instance, if you work for an ABC12 company, if you work for a company called ABC123, and your name is John D, your email address probably is JD or John D at abc123.com. John D at abc123.com. The abc123.com is your company's email domain name. So if you copy the link and you send the email has to be sent to a person within your organization, right? Because your organization is who the Microsoft rights or the Microsoft rights have been purchased from. So you can only send the email to someone with the same email domain. Now, let's say that you are working for a company and you're the consultant, or your company has a client and you're representing your company as a client for developing the Power BI report. Again, the domain name is going to be associated with the company who you're doing the work for, unless you are building the report initially within your company, and then you're going to transfer it over to the company that you're working for. Where I'm going with that is, if you copy the link and you send the link via email, the company must have the same email domain. If you're sending it via Teams, they must have the same email domain. I'm not going to beat that dead horse, but if you have any questions, shoot me a comment and I will try to be a little bit more clear in regards to that. So we have found that when we could save a copy as we normally could, we can embed the report, and we can embed the report in a SharePoint online, a website. We can publish it to the web. The developer playground is a whole other piece. I don't know what that actually is. We know that we can generate a QR code. We can print this page as is in any other document that we print. We can export this file. We can export this file to an Excel file so we can analyze all the pieces of data that's behind these different visualizations. We can export this file to a PowerPoint. We saw that it came out pretty clean. And I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool little deal. We can also save it as a PDF. Now, we also saw saving it as a PDF. It came out a little wonky in some areas. So that's just something for you to know. We can share this as an email link. We can copy the link. We can email it. We can place it in Teams. And again, we already know we can share it in SharePoint. Now, explore. What does explore mean? Explore means we can take the data from the data that we already have, and we can create different visualizations. I'm not going to create any different visualizations here, but all we have to do is just drag and drop. We can drag and drop, and we can see different visuals. Here we can create a matrix visual. Here we can create just different visuals that we want to be able to see for different reports. Very similar to if you guys are out there and you created files within Excel and you wanted to pivot or whatever, and you wanted to see it shake out in different ways. That's one thing that you can do. That is something that you're not able to do in desktop that you can do in Service. Again, I'm not advocating for Service. Or advocating building a reporting service. I'm just telling you that this is something that you can do that's in Service, that's not in desktop, whereas you can create different pivots. But I guess you could create a brand new page in desktop and look at the report in different ways if you want to. So I guess that unvalidates my point that this is something that you can only do in Service, because you can do it in desktop. You can do it in desktop by creating a new page. But that's one thing that we can do here in Service, is pretty much creating different looks. Now, subscribe. Individuals can subscribe to your report because they may want to see different data points that are updated, or different triggers that are updated at different times. So they may just want to subscribe to the report so that it comes to them every day, it comes to them every 2 or 3 days. However they want to set the subscription up, they may want to have that subscription to come every so often. Or you may want to create a subscription so that individuals within your organization could get updates on the report every so often. Very similar to alerts. You can set alerts in Power BI to where when different data points, and let's see, why is that? Oh, I got to close out a subscription. You can set when different data points are hit within Power BI, when certain states hit certain values, or when certain dealers have certain number of companies come through the doors, or when sales has reached certain levels within a state by certain dealers. whatever the case may be, different data points can be created so that alerts can be set so that when different data points are hit, or even when different data points are missed at certain times, a person that has access to your report, it may trigger them to go out and see the report, or it may trigger the report to become visible to them so that they can see, hey, this is what's going on. And you can set up different conditional color codings within reports, whether it be red for bad or green for good, so that they can go right into, or they can see directly what has happened within the report if their alert has been triggered. Workspace monitoring, this is more of some admin, Power BI admin. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's not just something that you necessarily have to do on a daily basis. And actually, you probably never will have to do it if you are not the Power BI admin. And if you are the Power BI admin, you'll probably know what you're doing. But this particular video is not built for the Power BI admin. It's built for someone just like you. Now, as I said before, let's see here. As I said before, what I often indicate is we do not want to build Power BI reports in Power BI Service. Okay, we do not want to build Power BI reports in Power BI Service. However, it is possible to build a report in Power BI Service. This report here is already built. I built this report in Power BI Desktop. I published it to Power BI Service, app.powerbi.com. I published it to My Workspace. And now what I could do, I could come in here and I could edit this report. Now we can see a very similar makeup as we would see in Power BI Desktop with our filters, with our visualizations, and with our data panes, just as we normally would see in Power BI Desktop. Now, we can make some of the changes that we would want to make. We could actually delete visuals, and we can come back over to the visualizations pane, and we can bring in new visuals, right? We can format just as we would in Power BI Desktop. Using the same structure, the same makeup, we can format visualizations. We can format the page. If we click out and we go to the format brush and we can say page information, we can come down and say canvas settings. We can come down, we can say canvas background. Much of what we have seen in Power BI Desktop, as far as creating the report, we can do here in Power BI Service. Now, we don't see the data modeling here in Power BI Service. We don't see the data report as we do in Power BI Service. But the actual visualization of the report, we do see here, and we can make the changes. Okay, we do see here, we can make the changes, we can create the edits here in Power BI Service. Again, I do not encourage you to build a report using Power BI Service. The two main reasons. One is we don't have, the data modeling that I just spoke about is not available here in Power BI Service. The data view of the data from a tabular standpoint is not available right here in Power BI Service. So I do not encourage anyone to build a report using Power BI Service. But if you don't have any other means of building the report, you can build a report here in Power BI Service. I just said a lot, but that's not what I encourage you to do. Okay, I do not encourage you to build a report in Power BI Service. Okay, so we have covered We have covered a great deal here today in discussing the Power BI Workspace and primarily things that you can and probably shouldn't do with Power BI Service, but understanding that there are things we can do with Power BI Service that's just not encouraged, right? But I hope you got a great deal from that. Again, if you have not already taken into consideration of joining us in Dallas on May 1st and 2nd for the Power BI Live, I encourage you to the link to the link in the description to Power BI, the link to Power BI Live Dallas is in the description. Follow the link and register for Power BI Live now, today. It's going to be a limited amount of seating. It's going to be a limited amount of space. And you want to get your reservations for Dallas now. We're going to be at the Omni Hotel, downtown Dallas, on May 1st and May 2nd. With that said, thank you for joining in. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.